Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, wherever you are. Thank you for joining us today to talk about our recent partnership between Octopus and Opsera. I'm excited to have Head of Product from Opsera, Vishnu, and John Bristowe from Octopus, Head of Product from Octopus here. We are going to talk about our partnership and focus on no-code orchestration of Octopus deployments. And thank you again. If you have any questions during this webinar, please type them as we go and we'll address them towards the end. Vishnu and John, take it away.
Thank you, Sushmita. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody. Welcome to the webinar. So I'm Vishnu Vasudevan. I head the product with Opsera, and I've been in the DevOps industry for quite some time. I'm passionate about DevOps. And today we're going to talk about Opsera and how we integrate with Octopus. And at the end of the webinar, you can try Opsera by using the link that we have. John?
Hi, my name's John. I'm a product director for the integrations team at Octopus Deploy. You can reach me on that email there. We have a trial you can establish if you want to get started with Octopus at octopus.com/start. And that's for both on-premise and cloud versions of Octopus Deploy.
Thank you, John. So we are happy to announce that we have recently announced partnership with Octopus Deploy, and with this partnership, it's going to help a lot of enterprises and people who are using Octopus as config as code, which will give full-blown CI/CD pipeline with respect to security and quality gates. And we have a deeper and native integration with Octopus, where you can basically create deployments or config the deployments that you already have with Octopus, and you should be able to have a full-blown DevOps ecosystem. And this should help you on the release management and also the DevOps adoption across the software delivery management. John, do you want to say something about the partnership?
Yeah, setting up pipelines can be difficult at best. So we're really excited to be partnering with Opsera. Octopus does its job really well in terms of deployments, but in terms of setting up pipelines that often orchestrate other systems, so solutions like Opsera are wonderful because they allow you to express that in a no-code WYSIWYG environment. So we're really keen to see what customers can do with these two tools.
Thank you, John. With that, let me start and talk about a little bit about what is Opsera and what we do. And Opsera is a no-code DevOps orchestration platform. We have three-prong approach. One is toolchain automation, no-code pipelines, and unified insights. What we do is we help customers to ship your code faster, safer, and smarter. So with toolchain automation, if you look at it as a self-service provision for any CI/CD tool, right? If you have, if you want to spin up tools like Jenkins, tools like the JUnit or Cypress, any testing tools or security tools, all you have to do is come to toolchain automation within Opsera. It's a one-click deploy, and the tool will be spinned up and it will be made available to you in a matter of minutes. The second is no-code pipelines. We offer no-code pipelines across multiple use cases, starting with SDLC, infrastructure as a code, a SaaS-based application with integrated security and quality dynamically. So it's a completely drag and drop pipelines. All you have to do is just configure your source code management and then the rest of the tools and then the governance and thresholds that is required for your policies. And once that is set up, you'll be able to start executing the pipelines. The third one is the unified insights. We provide real-time logs and unified insights across your complete DevOps ecosystem, starting from your code commit to the production deployment with security and quality. That way, you can get quick feedback around what's happening within the pipeline. That reduces your MTTR and also your MTTI and MTBF as well. So I'm just going to double click on the toolchain automation. So toolchain automation is as you see, it's no scripting, no grunt work. So you can basically set up and provision the tool out of the box, which you see in the screen. This is not an exhaustive list, but we do have a lot of tools, and you can choose your tech stack. And what we do is basically we empower the developers to pick and choose the tools they need based on their application stack or the technology stack. And also you don't have to worry about the lifecycle management in terms of the versioning or the updates or the rollbacks, and Opsera takes care of it automatically. That reduces a lot of headache on the operational issues that you might face of the tools that you might be hosting on your end. And the last one is the rationalize your DevOps environment. So with that, the developers can use any tools, but at the end of the day, if you want to see who is using what, Opsera will give that one single view, which application, which program, which product is using what tools in terms of achieving your DevOps goals. So these are some of the integration that we have today. We pretty much cover like 80% of the tools that we have in the market, starting from your source code. Like we have like GitLab, GitHub, Bitbucket, and then like the build tools, like pretty much Jenkins, TeamCity, Terraform or Amazon Easy or like JFrog. And with ITSM collab, like in terms of ServiceNow for your change management, or your Slack for your collaboration tools, or Jira for your service management, or your like product planning tool, you can integrate with Opsera like with single click. And also on the configuration side, like we have a lot of tools. And with the deployment, like we do have native integration with Octopus, as I said, like that's one of the tools that like we have end-to-end automation, I would say. And we do have other tools as well, like for the customers to bring in, like with respect to the native integration, like AWS or like GCP. And for the test and secure, as you can see, like we pretty much have like most of the test and security tools. And the best part about Opsera is like we do have Vault integration, which means like any integration that you bring in with an Opsera, that entire integration is going to happen through the Vault, which is going to basically give you secure pipelines. And like you don't have to worry about like managing the secrets or passwords as part of the glue code that you have written on the existing pipeline that you have at your end. The next slide is, it's all about like pipelines. So as I said, like it's a drag and drop pipelines. We provide like multiple pipeline templates for different use cases, and you can integrate security and quality gates at any step, like wherever you want. And also you can give control to your CISO team or your quality engineering team in terms of like the threshold that they want to set up on the product or the governance. The business can see like what's happening on the security and quality gates. So that way the feedback is going to be very quick for everybody to understand like where the problem is, where the bottleneck is, and they can basically make a quick decision in terms of like how to fix the pipeline issues and move forward with the production deployment. And also like you have the role-based thresholds and policies, which I said like the CISO team can say, okay, at the organization level, this is my policy and threshold is going to be at the security level. Similarly, the quality team can do that. And also you can basically use this pipeline, one single framework across any technology, right? Like be it like multi-language, like Java or .NET or JBoss or C# or React, and you can integrate with the Adobe Experience Manager and use Octopus as a deployment. You can use Salesforce, ServiceNow, cloud-based application, and SAP as well. It's a completely no-code pipeline, but like if there are high coders that like they want to utilize Opsera as a custom script, like we do have option for that, where you can write a custom script and like configure pipelines. But like the benefit you going to get out of it with respect to integrated security and quality gates, along with the policies and thresholds, that's going to come natively for all the users. The last one is the unified insights across the DevOps ecosystem. As I said, like we have like a lot of KPIs where you can set up a storyboard in terms of like what's happening with your product, right? Like, okay, this is when like my sprint started. From the day the sprint started, like how is your development team performing in terms of your development phase or your security phase or quality phase or your deployment phase. And like when your release manager comes into the picture, they can basically, you can see like, oh, okay, did the pipeline meet all the requirements as per the product or as per the governance set by the different stakeholders within our organization. So you can identify the bottlenecks, not just the KPIs, you can set up the goals. So you can also measure in terms of like, are you like really meeting your goals in terms of your build statistics or deployment statistics, or in terms of your security or quality. And if you're not meeting the goals, you can always send the notifications to various stakeholders so they can work with the development team and collaborate with them to see like how they can help. On top of it, you get actionable intelligence. It's not just the KPIs. When you click any area of the dashboard, like on the KPI, and you can see like where the bottleneck, where the failures are, that intelligence is going to tell you like who should be the person like they should talk to, and they will also be able to see the logs, which is basically going to help the development team and also the operations and the release management team to basically reduce the MTTR if something has gone wrong in the system. And also like it is going to significantly reduce the MTTR. I would say like it's a zero, right? Like when you have the insights like across the board, like when everybody sees the same information, your mean time to identifying an issue is going to be like almost null. So that's the benefit of Opsera, like where you get toolchain automation, drag and drop pipelines, and also like you get unified insights. It's a complete 360-degree solution for you to basically to use across any software delivery management or supply chain, right? Like around the software. Opsera is a product like which is going to help you out. With that, I'll hand it over to John to talk about like Octopus. John, do you want to take it from here?
Yeah, thanks, Vishnu. That's awesome. Great to see a product like that in the marketplace, helping people build out pipelines. This is the best part of my job. I get to talk a little bit about a wonderful product we have called Octopus. So the way we like to describe this is, if you want the sort of one-line pitch, this is complex deployments made easy. And so if you think about Octopus in the confines of software development, what we do is we try to address the aspects that are often overlooked in the software development process, which is the release management, the deployment of actual software, the getting of packages and bits onto machines and configured in the right way. In addition to that, we also make sure that we offer a capability for operating that software once it's been deployed. We have over 25,000 customers who use our software today. Some notable examples include Stack Overflow, NASA, Disney, etc. And so what I'd like to do now is spend the next couple of minutes talking a little bit about that. So on slide 10, the next slide here, Vishnu or whoever. Yeah, thank you very much. So this is typically how most people think about the way in which they'll build software. They'll typically have a team that writes code that goes into a build server, and then some things kind of spit out of that, and then it gets pushed out magically to a device, a box, whatever. What we try to do is we try to help you automate the aspect of deployment. So when your team writes code and it goes to build that code, you will generate a number of what are called typically packages or binaries. Those packages and binaries are often self-describing. They have a lot of characteristics to them, but more often than not, you don't want to just copy those binaries to a location. You want to, moreover, configure various steps to occur when you copy those packages on a target machine. And that's part of what Octopus Deploy allows you to do. So in addition to defining a deployment process, there's a whole bunch of other things that you can configure as part of that. In addition to that, you can also control the various versions that are incorporated as part of your deployment. So as you go from V1 to vNext, you can actually have a set of algorithms. You can have a set of deployment types that you incorporate as part of that deployment strategy. So on the next slide, we talk a little bit about this, some of the things in which Octopus does for your environment. So on slide 11, we talk about this sort of this spectrum of things that occur during a deployment process. So as I said before, you'll typically develop software, you'll build, and then from there, the magic happens. And this is where we try and integrate with customers like Opsera, but also a variety of other customers as part of your tool chain. So out of the box, we have support for a variety of build servers, a variety of integrations that you can incorporate as part of your overall pipeline. And then you can incorporate a whole suite of deployment types that allow you to do a whole host of things that you may want to do as part of a deployment, whether that's provisioning environments, whether that's incorporating a manual intervention, like being able to approve a deployment, everything from that to doing other types of deployments, like a rolling deployment, blue-green deployment. These and other types of aspects are critical for doing deployments well. And so that's part of the whole suite of things that we actually have as part of Octopus from a product offering. In addition to that, we also can deploy to a whole range of environments, both in the cloud and on-premise. And then finally, when you go to operate these things, we have a series of capabilities called runbooks, which allow you to do things like incident recovery and routine maintenance tasks against the deployments that have been occurred. So on the next slide, we talk a little bit about what some of those tasks are and how they incorporate. So continuous deployment automation, this is basically being able to define your deployment once and being able to execute it repeatably, reliably, and in a traceable manner. And so we integrate with a whole host of technologies, as I mentioned before. We have over 500 automation tasks that you can use out of the box. And these range from small automation tasks to very large ones. And they incorporate a whole host of technologies, platforms, systems, applications that you can incorporate as part of a deployment process. As I said before, we have a whole host of deployment patterns you can incorporate. And you can incorporate also release management as part of this process when shipping software. Finally, when we talk about on the next slide, we talk about runbooks automation. That's basically a step that you can use to automate the operation side of your deployments. So whether that's provisioning databases to doing server maintenance, etc. These and other types of operations you can, again, much like a deployment process, execute repeatedly and often based on a variety of inputs that you may wish to incorporate. And finally, on the last slide, we talk a little bit about integrating with your infrastructure. This is critical to the success of Octopus. We want to make sure that we work with the stuff that you own. And we want to slot right in there perfectly so that you can incorporate it, whether that's configuring web servers like IIS to configuring other types of infrastructure. We have these turnkey scenarios for you to provision and set up these things very easily, and then execute the deployment of these things across a variety of machines through what are called tentacles. The analogy is that Octopus has tentacles itself, and these are the ways in which we can communicate with remotely connected machines. In addition to that, we also support out of the box a variety of cloud providers, Azure, AWS, Google Cloud, etc., as well as some of the more popular ways of deploying software through things like containers, leveraging technologies like Kubernetes and Helm. And so out of the box, we basically have everything that you need in order to do deployments successfully and reliably.
So with Opsera, like I would like to add a point, like John, that's great, right? Like you coming as a config as code, like reducing the pain point for the customers in terms of configuring the different environments or the different technology or different clouds. What Opsera brings is, right, like it basically helps the customers to bring all these products into Opsera through the vault, right? Like as I said, like in a secure manner. And also like you can also build the comprehensive dashboards by application and environment. And out of the box, they're going to get the rolling deployments, the blue-green deployments, canary deployments, the rollback to previously known successful package. Because Opsera has the ability for, like, offers an ability to the customers to basically pick and choose the deployment package they want to release. For instance, like you are in a sprint on a release train engine, and like you want to release a package that was built like 2 weeks ago into the production, you will have option to pick and choose and deploy it. So you can build once, you can configure once, and once the pipeline is ready, and you can do an on-demand deployment. That's the advantage the customers are going to get it, especially with tool like Opsera, which has like a deeper integration with all the technology stacks and then the cloud providers or the legacy systems. And Opsera can play a significant role and help customers to automate the pipelines end-to-end, starting from the code commit to the production deployment.
A good automated deployment is something that deploys your web apps in a fast, repeatable, and reliable manner. Something that you can count on every time and you don't have to think about. Octopus Deploy is a friendly deployment automation tool that does just this. Octopus takes over where your build server ends, enabling you to easily automate even the most complicated application deployments, whether on-prem or in the cloud. Octopus was born out of the problem of inconsistent and error-prone deployments. Do your manual deployments take a long time? Or do you remote into your servers and create a copy of a copy of a copy of your config files before making changes? Octopus makes these problems a thing of the past. Octopus is solely focused on deploying your apps and services. It is designed to make it easy to automate the deployment of your projects and deploy them over and over, whenever you want. Automate your deployments in 3 easy steps. Octopus first needs to know about your infrastructure and where to find it. Octopus has a central server that manages everything required to deploy to target machines running Tentacle, a small lightweight agent. This could be your servers running Windows, Linux, or Mac OS. Alternately, you can deploy directly to popular cloud services like Amazon Web Services or Microsoft's Azure platform. Octopus integrates with your build servers like TeamCity, VSTS, Bamboo, or Jenkins. It works with packaged copies of your build artifacts that can be pushed to Octopus or stored in your own package repository. You can even push your packages and automatically kick off deployments to your environments. Next, create a project and define your deployment process. Configuring a new project is easy with our first-class support for .NET, Java, and cloud services. We also have a step template library that comes with hundreds of official and community-contributed steps, so you can get up and running quickly without custom scripting. Finally, add variables for your environment-specific configuration settings, like database connection strings, or usernames and passwords for third-party services. Octopus will automatically update your configuration files as you promote your app through environments. Now that you've done the hard work, you're ready to deploy. Create a release of your project and kick off a deployment. Since you've already defined your deployment process and variables, you'll know that every deployment will just work. With each release, Octopus snapshots all of the important details so that this deployment and all future deployments are done in a repeatable and reliable manner. Octopus also supports advanced deployment patterns, including multi-tenant deployments, so you can safely and securely deploy your applications for each of your end customers. Head over to octopus.com/downloads and start a free 45-day trial today. Happy deployments!
With that, I will quickly show a demo of like how Opsera integrates with Octopus, and also like other capabilities that we have within Opsera, like as discussed in the previous slides. So as I said, like Opsera is a SaaS-based solution, and like it takes about like 15 minutes for customer to get onboarded into Opsera. Like why it takes 15 minutes? The reason is like we onboard each customer into dedicated VPC. And like once you are onboarded, like we have native integration with Okta or Ping Identity, you can bring in your own SSO and you can start using the product. So we have a three-prong approach here: toolchain, pipeline, insights, and we are 100% Kubernetes and microservices-based architecture. So as I said, like in the toolchain, like you can pick and choose the tools. For instance, like you have a Java stack, you basically want to like have your own set of tools for your application. You can click create, and you can pick and choose the tools you need. For instance, like you want to use Jenkins for your build, and then like you want to use SonarQube for your static code analysis, and then like Nexus for your repository management, and Anchor for your container scan, and you already have Octopus at your end. All you have to do is deploy tool selection. The entire tool stack will be deployed on the dedicated VPC, and each VPC will come up with a dedicated vault, as I said, like where you will be basically bringing in all your integrations as well. And it takes about like 5 minutes for you to start using these tools. And once the tools are spinned up, the user doesn't necessarily have to log into these tools, write any code or like any custom configuration to build the pipelines. All they have to do is go into the tool registry, which is basically like where you can see like what are the different tools that you have already configured, or this is where like you'll bring in any integration, be it the tools that is pinned up with an Opsera or the tools that you already have. The benefit of Opsera is like we don't tell or advise customers to change the tool they already have at their end. You bring the tools as is, like whatever that you're having today, and like integrate with Opsera. And then like you make sure that like you have a complete shift left approach pipeline with respect to security and quality as well. So here, all you have to do is pick the tool. For instance, like you want to choose Octopus here. You can find the Octopus in the integration that we have, select the tool, and then all you have to do is give a name. And then like you can provide the cost center if you're an enterprise, and you can also apply the classification, production, non-production. You can apply the tax. I will come back to the tax. What is it and like how it is going to be useful. And you can also set the RBAC. Who gets access to this particular tool registry? Who can change it, modify it? And you have multiple roles here: administrator, manager, user, and guest, where administrator can have like full access to this particular tool registry integration that is bringing in. The user or the guest, they will not be able to make any changes, but they can see like what are the different pipelines that is connected to this particular Octopus tool. And you can click create. And once it is created, you will see the connection tab. Here is where like you will provide your endpoint information and then the username and the API key that is required. So any information that you provide within the tool registry, it is completely stored in the vault in an encrypted fashion. So you don't have to worry about the security aspect of it. The next one is the application. Once you connect to the tool, you go to the application. Here you have option to create your different environments within Octopus, your account, your target, your external feed, Tomcat manager. For instance, like you want to do a war-based deployment, and you can pick and choose the Tomcat here and configure, right? So all you have to do is choose the instance name, and then they provide the Tomcat manager URL, and then the username and password, and then you'll be able to basically configure everything from within the Opsera itself. Similarly, your multi-environment deployment, you can configure within Opsera itself. And if you want to delete it here, for some reason, like you're given some wrong information, I don't want to have it, you can delete it here from Opsera itself. That's a level of integration that we have. So let me quickly cancel it. And once you configure it, it's a one-time setup, just like the Octopus, right? Like you configure once and use it multiple times. You do it once here within the tool registry for all your pipelines. And once it is completed, you can go to the pipelines here And here we have a concept called catalog. So in this catalog, you can basically create pipeline. This pipeline will give you a shift left approach with respect to all the security and quality gates. So for instance, like you have a Jenkins and you have tools like SonarQube, JUnit, and Apache JMeter, Selenium framework, and all these things comes out of the box. All you have to do is click here. Since your configuration is already available in the tool registry, you just have to choose the tool that you want to configure, and then like choose the job type, and then like say, okay, I want to do a Docker-based build, and say Docker, and then like choose the GitHub repository or GitLab repository, and you can basically say, okay, I'm going to do a Azure Octopus, and then choose the branch, and then like provide the Docker name. And then you can apply the dynamic tag. The dynamic tag can be anything like a run count, a date, or a timestamp, or a custom tag. On top of it, like you can provide the Docker file path if you have anything specific, and click save. Once you're done, this entire particular step has been configured, and you can see like you can see unique identifier ID, which means like it's a independent microservice. Now, if you want to configure this to a different systems, okay, you want to get an email alert like whenever the build is ready, or you want to have a Jira ticket created like when the build is failing to someone for some reason, you can create a Jira ticket, and Jira ticket will have all the pipeline information. And in fact, like we take care of the lifecycle management of your Jira as well. Like when you open a ticket with an error when the pipeline is failed, and once you fix the error, rerun the pipeline, and we make sure that like Jira ticket is closed, or we update the Jira ticket and we move forward with the pipeline. You can connect to your Microsoft Teams, you can connect to ServiceNow, you can connect to Slack. So pretty much like all these things comes with a single click. So, and each of this step can be configured to different tools and different teams. So for instance, like if a quality step is failing and you want to create a Jira ticket, your quality team, or send a notification in Slack or Microsoft Teams to your quality team, you can do that. So that like you don't have to bombard the notification and the ServiceNow incidents to one single time every time for anything that happens within the pipeline.
Vishnu, that's pretty awesome. I'm smiling while watching this demo of yours because I know I've written reams of HCL and YAML to do this exact thing, and that the fact that you're just pointing and clicking almost makes me jealous. So yeah, it's awesome.
Thanks, and that's been like one of the pain areas for a lot of customers, right? Because with the growing number of tools in the market every year, they are changing the tools. When that happens, there is a significant learning curve, and people struggle to basically integrate the security and quality aspect as part of the pipeline. Every time the policies are changing, the organizations are coming up with the new tools. So that's the reason like a product like Opsera can help the customers basically like drag and drop the step and configure the integrations like in like matter of minutes and start using within the pipeline. So they don't have to worry about the DevOps tools, but they can focus on the actual product they're working on. So like they can release the product much faster into the market, and also they can see the better return on investment on the product they're releasing. Let me show a pipeline that we have with Octopus. So if you look at this pipeline has a build with Jenkins and then pushing it to Azure and pushing it to deploying via Octopus, right? Like let me quickly show how this Octopus is configured, right? Like when you click this, you can see the Octopus tool ID. This is coming from the tool registry, and you have the space name. You can basically, in this case, it is default, and you have multiple environments configured. And if you want to deploy the artifacts into multiple environments at the same time, you can do it here. And also like you can also choose the project type and also default project group. So you can say like multi-environment, right? And then like you can say the project name. So for instance, like I want to give a project name here. This is going to be the release for my project. You can click validate project. It will validate and say, okay, there is no project available. So you can create this project. Now you can give the project description, and then like from where you want to push this artifact. Like, do you want to push it from the build step, or do you want to push it from the Azure? And you can also have the deployment lifecycle, right? Like it's a mandatory environment lifecycle. Whatever that you see in Octopus, you can do it here, right? And then like, what is your deployment platform type looking like? Is it a Kubernetes? The Kubernetes can be Google Cloud, or it can be an AWS, it can be an Azure. And also the script type is going to be inline. And then like, you can see the script, right? So if you are looking, if you're wondering like where this script is coming from, right? Like we have a concept called tool registry, as I said, right? Like if you go into the tool registry here, and within the tool registry, you have a concept called scripts. So as a release management team, if you want to make sure that like whatever the scripts that is being executed, it's been validated and vetted by the release team and by the infrastructure team, you can basically create a new script. And the script can be like, okay, Octopus deploy and say it's going to be in YAML. You can basically type in the script, set the R back, and then like you can restrict it. So nobody can change the script. So every time like the deployment goes through, you can be confident that the scripts are not changed and it's been vetted, it's been approved, and that's the script you're executing as part of the Octopus deployment.
Yeah, so scripts are one of these sort of, if you don't have a built-in step for something you're doing to a deployment, you can obviously script it. And so as Vishnu was showing, we have a variety of languages you can write your scripts in, but it's sort of like that one step to rule them all. If you can't find the step built out of the box, you can simply write the code for it. And something that I wanted to mention here, Vishnu, like you've skipped over it a lot, but if no one here has ever seen Octopus before, you're probably sitting here wondering, like, what's a channel? What is an environment? What's a life cycle? These are Octopus isms. They are definitions of things that we classify within Octopus, and we surface them out through the tool set you see here through Opsera. So everything that you're seeing here is being done via API back to Octopus through that API key that you provided earlier. And Opsera is providing this really nice, slick interface on top of it. We have our own interface as well, but to have this integration is really, really nice, especially if you're managing or federating a pipeline through an orchestration. And so some of the things that you might define in here are sort of the development, prod, test sort of environments that you want to use across an organization. Some of the other things you might want to do is like a test environment or a dev environment, or perhaps I want to classify these in what's called a project group or a particular project. We even have the concept order called spaces, which is like a container mechanism for segmenting various projects across Octopus. These and other things we provide through Octopus, but are exposed through Opsera, which is really nice. And so by providing these mechanisms, you can actually control a lot of the aspects that you would normally do through our own interface, but now through a federated interface with Opsera.
Thank you, John. And on top of it, like we do have options to really roll back to a previous version, right? Like once you deploy it and then your business validates and say, hey, this is not working out, and have this rollback to previous version enabled, and it'll basically pull all the repository tags from like Azure or Nexus or JFrog, wherever your artifact repository is, and you'll be able to point it to the image that you want to roll back. And then like you can also specify the deployment variables as well. These deployment variables as well, like you can configure within the tool registry as well. So here we have something called parameters. So you can basically encrypt any parameters. For instance, like you want to add a password, right? And you don't want to expose the password to anybody, and you don't want to see it as part of the logs. You can set up the RBAC, and these passwords can be managed either by the security team or can be managed by the release team or the operations team. And once they create it, all they have to do is the release team or the deployment team, they just have to pull the parameter here, and then like they can choose the environment where they want to apply this variable, and they can deploy it. Right? If you look at the configuration, it might look lengthy, but like it is very simple. Like once you start using the pipeline, like within 30 minutes, you can learn the entire product, and you can basically integrate with security tools like SonarQube or TwistLock or Anchor, or set up the thresholds and the governance and policies, and you can start using the pipeline, and you should be able to have a shift left pipeline in about less than 1 hour up and running. Right now, you can also configure your like Git repository, so you don't have to come to Opsera. You can basically like do a commit, and then like based on the post commit hook, we trigger the pipeline. Or you can also do a start pipeline, or we do have a Opsera CLI, just like the kubectl CLI, where you can log into the kubectl CLI and pull the pipeline with the pipeline name or the pipeline ID, and you can execute it and see the logs and to see like what's happening. And once you click the start pipeline, the pipeline is going to start. Once the pipeline starts, you will see the log streaming coming into the Opsera itself. Like here you see like the 4 boxes, you'll see a green arrow coming in, which will basically give you the logs of each and every step that has got executed part of this particular pipeline. Right? So you can see the logs coming in from the Jenkins, you can see the logs coming from the Azure, you can similarly see the logs coming from Octopus as well. So let me go into the summary tab and quickly show you. So like if you want to look into the pipeline number 57, right? So the run number 57 here, like you have the Azure push step, and if you want to look into the console output, you can go to the console log here, and in the console log you can see like what is the image that is created, and like what is the size. All this information can be validated. And now if we want to look into the console output of the Octopus, you can click here and you can see the entire logs. So you have multi-environment deployment, for instance, You can see the logs for this particular environment dev and the test and the prod in one single console. The benefit is, so if something goes wrong in the pipeline, the development usually don't have access to these logs. With Opsera, you don't have to give access to the tools, but instead, like, everybody can see what's happening within the pipeline, and they can quickly like start working on the issue that like the pipeline is facing. So while this pipeline is running, let me quickly show you, talk about the tags. So we ask the customer to apply the tags. The pipeline can be like a build pipelines, it's a deploy pipeline, or it's an application name, or it can be a product name, it can be a release name. So with that, like, what they can do is, when they go into the unified insights, they don't have to write any code. All they have to do is like add the KPI they want, and then like they can see what's happening within the build, security, quality, and the deployment, and they get actionable intelligence out of it. Right. The third module is unified insights, as I said. So for instance, like if you want to look at the build and deployment statistics here, right? Sorry. You can see what is the success rate of your build, what is your deployment success rate, what is your average daily builds, what is your average daily deployments. You can also set the goals here as well, and you can see apply the tags using the KPI tags or the dashboard tags. And I was talking about the unified insights, right? You can click here. It'll basically tell you like how many total builds that has happened from Jan 14 to April 14 on what are the different pipelines, right? Like for instance, like if you want to look at the multi-pipeline, click here. That will basically take you to the pipeline, and you'll be able to see all the logs corresponding to this pipeline, and you'll also be able to see who has triggered this pipeline, and you can effectively have a conversation with them in terms of like any issues with the security or quality. Let me show you something around the security. So here, if you look at, this is a storyboard I was talking about, right? Like how many commits the team is making, right? Like how many, what is your deployment frequency status? These KPIs are aligned in terms of with DORA, NIST, and Department of Defense. And you can see the SDLC duration statistics, your deployment, and then like 47 runs. It takes like average of 1.69 minutes. There is no test run, right? And you can apply the tags here, right? The tags can be applied here, saying that like it's going to be pipeline merge tag. The moment you apply, the KPIs are going to change automatically here. You don't have to do anything. And if you don't want, you can remove it, and you can see everything happening within your organization as part of the different pipelines that you have at your end. Now we can see the Jira tickets assigned by user, your Jira sprint burn down, your Opsera duration by stage, and also your Selenium test summary, right? Like how many test cases executed, passed, failed, and all this information, you can get it out of the box. Security. So if you want to have a separate security board for your CISO team to understand what's happening, you can see like for the SONA rating, your goal is to achieve A, but like you are in B, right? Like, and if you want to understand like where the 67 bucks are coming in, you can click the B here. That will basically say, okay, the pipeline demo repo month, it has like 67 bucks. And if you want to understand like what is the 67 bucks, click it. That will take you to the pipeline, and you can see like go to the security scan. And it came from the pipeline number 31, the run number 31, and you can look into all the logs corresponding to the security issues that they are receiving, right? And you can also have the bugs security card. You can also have the container scan KPIs as well, like as part of the Opsera Unified Insights dashboard. The last one is the build blueprint section. This is more around the compliance and governance. So if you want to compare two pipelines, for instance, like Octopus, I'm going to choose IIS pipeline, and I'm going to compare with two releases. What really happened between like release number 15 and release number 14. Click lookup. It'll basically give you all the logs. Okay, this pipeline number 15, it did not run at all. Like, so you can go to 12 and you want to compare it with 15. So you can see, you can compare side by side like what really happened, and you can make a quick call in terms of like your pipeline release management, right? In terms of like what is working, what is not working. And if you want to export it as a PDF and store it in your Confluence as part of your audit or compliance, you can export it and you can put it in your Confluence. So when the auditor comes, you don't have to scramble for different logs or different metrics. You can basically like pull this export as PDF, like whatever that you have uploaded in your Confluence, and you can show it to your auditors. This basically help you to complete the audit in much faster manner. With that, I'll pass here. And if there is any questions, happy to take it, like around Octopus or Opsera. John, do you want to chime in? Like, what do you think about the product, like in terms of the deployment that I've shown here, and how we configure and the blueprints and the unified insights?
Yeah, I think it's great. I'm smiling because I think this is fantastic. That's not to be said though. It's just kind of like a humble brag. Like look at all the stuff we do, which is great. We do a lot of this stuff as well internally, our tool. But I think that the real power here is the sort of better together story of Opsera plus Octopus, which is really what we're here to talk about. And that's awesome. Like I think all the stuff that you have featured here, which is great, can surface that information out through Octopus, out through to Opsera, and make available to other tooling, which is great. We do have a few other questions that have been posed here. So one question, for example, how do I integrate with Opsera if my deployments are configured in Octopus already? Do I need to reconfigure from Opsera? Now, generally speaking, you do have this scenario where I have Opsera and I'm bringing in Octopus, or I have Octopus or I'm bringing in Opsera, or maybe I'm taking on both at the same time. So as far as Octopus is concerned, because you're communicating with us from an API perspective, we see all traffic basically the same way. So whether you're coming to us through our own UI or you're coming to us through an Opsera integration or another integration, they're all the same thing. And so we maintain the deployment data itself. Now, that's different if you're surfacing that data out through integrations like Opsera. Obviously, they need to preserve that fidelity of data. And there may be some cases where they need to replicate it. So in cases of, for example, gaining insights, right? If I want to track how many deployments I've executed, I may have to create a meta counter for that in order to track that data, because in some instances, we may not track that for you. So there are going to be some cases where it depends on really the use case. But generally speaking, if you're defining a deployment, generally speaking, and it's integrated within Octopus, you're going to define that within Octopus because that's where that deployment process exists. Did you have anything to add to that, Vishnu?
Thank you, John. Yeah, as John mentioned, like don't worry about like whether you already configured everything. Like how am I going to migrate like the thousands of jobs that you have configured with Octopus? Opsera with native integration, you can pull in all the configuration and you can start setting up the pipeline. And I think there's another question as well. Can I pass my deploy variables and custom scripts using Vault? Like as I showed in the tool registry, you can have any variables or custom scripts vetted and approved within the Vault. And then like you can set up the RBAC. So like only people like who is permitted to have access, they'll be able to modify it or update it. But the person who is triggering the pipeline, they will not be able to see any of these values. They can just configure the parameters within the pipeline in the step and they can execute it. Right. With that, like you can basically make sure that like you don't have to pass any clear text password or like the secrets or tokens within the deployment scripts as part of your configuration.
Yeah, we have that same concept in Octopus. They're called sensitive variables, which are basically write-only values. So you can write to the internals of Octopus if you want to persist a variable, but you can never read it. And so that's throughout all our deployment scripts that you can execute. And we also support the concept of both variables as well as integration with secure storage like vaults. And if you're getting into specifics, like HashiCorp Vault, for example, is one of many integrations that we support.
Awesome. And we do integrate with the HashiCorp Vault as well, like John.
This is becoming a bragging contest. Oh, we do that too.
The third question is, can I integrate Opsera with ITSM tools and collaboration tools like ServiceNow and Jira for change management? As I said, like as part of like any deployment process, change management is critical for big enterprises as part of tracking the CIs and then creating the standard change and then like the normal change. With Opsera, we have native integration with ServiceNow on the Jira. You will be able to create the Jira ticket on the fly, and like you can approve the Jira ticket within your Jira system and then continue to trigger the pipeline. And also like similarly with the ServiceNow as well, like you can create the standard change, or like if you have a normal change, you'll be able to approve the change and like Opsera validates the change ticket and triggers the deployment within Octopus.
Yeah, you're stealing my thunder here because we do the same thing basically. So we integrate with Jira. We are currently building our integration for ServiceNow, but the philosophy is exactly the same. Basically, you're going to use one of these tools to approve changes through deployments, for example, whether that is carried through an orchestration via Opsera down to Octopus is one method, or you could talk directly to Octopus via Jira or ServiceNow is another method. It really, what I think we're trying to espouse here is use what makes you happy. Right. So every environment's different. Every way in which you're going to manage these things is going to be different. Using the various tools that are out there is going to be different. So Opsera gives you control over the federation of those tools through an orchestration. Octopus has a very limited scope in terms of its view, but what we do is very, very important to us, which is deployments. You can use both. You can use each one separately. It doesn't matter, but we both integrate with ITSM tooling.
That's awesome, John. Okay, do we have any other questions?
No other questions right now, but I think one of the things we can just wrap up with is if you guys are at all interested in checking out Octopus, you can go to octopus.com, and I would imagine Opsera, Opsera.io is the URLs there. So try and check out a trial if you have the time to do so, and check out the integration that's there. We're really happy with the partnership with Opsera. We really like the fact that tools like this allow us to look so good, which is great. And we hope that, if you're choosing to do a deployment, you choose Octopus, and we try and do that a really good job of that. And obviously, going ahead, if you choose to use a tool like Opsera, that should hopefully help you with your deployments going forward.
Yep, I'm just going to flash it quickly, like the website here for you to basically contact us, opsera.io/contact, and for Octopus, octopus.com/start. So reach out to us if you have any questions, and like we are passionate on DevOps, and like any questions are on Octopus, or generally want to talk about DevOps or talk about Opsera, talk about Octopus, let us know. Happy to help you wherever you are, and like hopefully like we can work together and take the DevOps to the next level.
Excellent. Thank you, Vishnu and John. Really excited to hear about the Octopus tool and the Opsera platform, which both are about democratizing DevOps and helping everybody choose what they want that is best for their innovation. Great to hear about the partnership and the value that both the tools platforms bring it together. I hope everybody enjoyed the webinar. Feel free to contact the speakers here, and we'll look forward to talking to you in our next webinar next time around. Thanks again, and have a wonderful day wherever you are.